What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Press X Podcast, episode 81, your weekly podcast for gaming news and opinions come at you each and every Monday at noon Eastern. I'm Kevin McManus. With me, Nick Hassell.
Hey, that's me.
And no Kellen, because we're doing Vita games. Top 10 of them.
He's played maybe 2.
He's at least played 3.
3? What's the third one? We'll get to it. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So the way that this works for people who don't know, these are games that originally launched on the Vita.
Yep.
So no ports, no remasters, even things like Shovel Knight that showed up on the Wii U and then showed up to the Vita.
Even things
after.
that get dramatically changed and aren't really a port.
Correct. So otherwise, I'd actually change 2 of mine.
For me, this is the list so far. I know this is the, 4th one? 3rd one?
Fourth.
I think we've done a Sony console, an Xbox or Microsoft console, and a Nintendo console.
And we did the Wii U, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's the 4th. This is the one where it's most transparent for me that, that rule sucks. Because it's not... Because my actual, number 1 or maybe something that would go on 1 to 10 would be there.
Gotcha.
So it's a little different. Like, if someone was just like, hey, I just got this Vita, what should I get? Then I would be like, well... Actually, you should get these other 3 things.
Yeah,
but
we'll talk about it. The way we do the point system is basically your number 10 is worth 1 point, my number 10 is worth 1 point. You keep
inverse
going up,
order.
9 is worth 2, et cetera, et cetera. Then we add them all up, and I don't know how we're gonna break ties yet. We'll have to figure that out when we get there.
I don't think it'll matter for this one.
We'll see.
There might be one or two.
But I do want to say. Give my little speech about my Vita, because I love the Vita. It's probably,
this is your system.
Yeah, it's probably my second favorite system of all time. I like the original Nintendo quite a lot.
Your favorite handheld?
Easily, not even
hands
close.
down. Yeah.
So just some features that I really like about it for people who may not know. The remote play is great. Yep. You can play your PlayStation 4 games on your Vita. With Vita, every PlayStation 4 game is a Vita game, so we could have just done a PS4 list, I guess. It has cross-party chat. You can chat in your games. You can chat with PS4 players. You can get into a party, and I can think of a handheld that does not have cross anything chat.
Yeah,
it doesn't even have chat. Stupid Switch, which is basically killing the Vita. It had the Vita TV, which allowed you to play the games on the TV, which was super nice. You had Netflix and you had YouTube. You could play music in the background. You can put music onto it and then play it in the background of your games.
The one kind of note I'll throw in there, because I know this is your system of choice, the HUD or main menu or dashboard, whatever you want to call it, very simple, very nice.
You like it? A lot of people don't like it. I like it too for a handheld.
Well, yeah, for a handheld,
right.
Especially. But I mean, if you think of we're living in the age of PS4, which is pretty good. It's gotten better with updates. I
like the PS4s.
Xbox One, which is my god,
a mess. Yeah.
Switch, which is, I'd say 50-50.
We'll have to see.
It's kind of bare bones right now, but obviously it just...
That's why I'm saying we'll have to see. I don't know if it does yet.
But yeah, as far as just dashboards go, or whatever you want to call it, hub, I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's nice. Interesting life for the Vita. It started out with the promise of this is the console for gaming on the go, console quality games. You're getting your Uncharted, you're getting these new IP, you're getting your Killzones, you're getting Resistance, Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed. You're getting these games.
It's hit a bunch of waves
on the go, and then it converted into kind of we have multiplayer stuff that you can play with your friends, which doesn't work because it's so expensive. And then it converted into the indie, like this is the best place to play your 8-bit games and all that stuff. And that's kind of where it lived until what I think the Switch is going to take that crown back.
That's one strong point of its competition, 3DS, where it's just had a clear set goal from the start. Like, this is what the system is. This is what's you're gonna play your Fire Emblems, your Pokemon,
your Nintendo games,
and whatever. But yeah, this one's been through weird phases and waves and stuff like that. And I think it's obviously not the system's fault. It's just kind of what Sony has been popular, successful with, and it's let's ride this train, and then this comes out, okay, let's do this. So it's had a bunch of, I don't know,
ups and
lives.
Downs. Yeah, they're. I mean, they definitely had hits and misses. The charging port thing was a problem. They fixed that on the Slim. The biggest problem is the memory cards, the proprietary memory card. I have no clue why they didn't use SD cards.
I got my Vita pretty late in the game, a few years ago at this point, but it was weird to go back to that system of just you get everything you're used to now, just buying the system, buy games, maybe a couple peripherals, but I remember putting my first game that I bought in, and just being like, okay, here we go. And then it's like, you don't have
enough space.
It's just like, what?
you don't have space on the
I felt like I got transported back 10 years. But like I said, I know I got mine late. So probably when it came out, it was still relatively common, but I don't know. It was just weird.
It was very weird, and they tried to hide it. But either way, I love the console. It has so many games, and people just don't. A lot of them are digital.
Yeah.
But it has so much, and I feel like people complain about things with current consoles like the Switch and stuff. And I'm like, man, the Vita did 90% of the stuff that people are talking about for the Switch that they're excited about, and nobody knows. That's the problem. Like Sony could not show people it. People didn't care. They just like shut off their brain. So whatever.
With systems, and I kind of like to throw that out there with each one of these that we do, I try to give like a theme or like what this system was to me. Stuff like Wii U was, I don't know, it's hard to kind of nail down Wii U, but it had just a bunch of games that I wouldn't normally play. So it was just kind of like an outlier system, but like Wii is like the party game console in my brain of all time.
Yeah.
Stuff like Dreamcast is like the fighting game machine of all time. 360 is my multiplayer console of all time, just because that's like what I used it for. But this one, Vita, I always call it like the best kept secret in at least handheld gaming, but probably just gaming. Because like you said, there are so many conferences and events and stuff like that. It just feels like here's the perfect opportunity to talk about this, and it's just like,
and they don't do it.
No one seems to care, and they don't put the effort into it to make people care. So
yeah, it's a little unfortunate, but these are our recommendations for games. These are not our favorite games. You know, these are games that if you're getting one, you should buy these games.
Yeah.
And that's reflected on my list. I like, I mean, obviously, a lot of these are my favorite, but like my favorite Vita game is not my number one. These are games that like I would recommend people play and try and buy with the console, basically.
It's some middle ground between critical review, reception, like public reception, and personal what it did for us. So,
and the only other thing I want to point out, I think I got all the rules, but the only other thing is two things in the same series can't be used. You just pick one of them, and that represents your game for that series.
An easy choice would be like if you're talking about, obviously we can't with this system, but Crash, how it has its mainstay games and Crash Team Racing, those are separated, so it wouldn't really count.
Right, but you can't have Crash 2 and 3 on your list because they're the same series.
So that's where we were going with that.
They're sequels.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But Sony, lots of spin-offs, so lots of potential to have
that's true.
One franchise represented quite well.
So let's move into our number 10 for 1 point each. I did my list.
You want me to start so you can have number 1 at the end, since it's your system?
Sure, whatever.
I'll start off. Number 10, The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel.
Interesting. I was wondering if this was going to be on your list.
So it's a nice, for me, it's a nice combination between like Final Fantasy, which I know that is just a melting pot of genres by this point because they've just kind of tried everything with that franchise. Classic Final Fantasy and Persona. It's a very long game consisting of like a bunch of time management sort of systems. So that's kind of like the Persona management with like relationships and school life and stuff like that, and building classes or not really classes, but like building up your characters. And I really like the presentation of it because it's got a dynamic combat system. So the more you talk and build up your relationships with these people and do these certain activities, like the game kind of sways in that favor. So you can feel, you can like feel the results of your time. It's not like you just chose A, B, or C and it doesn't really matter. Maybe change like a sentence. Like this one dramatically changes the game. If you talk to these few people and do these activities, like the game steers in that direction. And with a 50+ hour game, it obviously,
I was gonna say that game's long.
The impact of it is very noticeable because all that time that you're spending doing these different things and the game shifts, like you can tell over a long period of time. So I liked it. That's my number 10.
My number 10 is Helldivers. Helldivers is, since it has online play and it works really well, it works for the handheld because you can play it by yourself. You don't actually need that group there. But Helldivers is a top-down, very difficult, four-player, like twin-stick shooter, I guess you could say, where you're doing missions and objectives on alien planets. and friendly fire is always on. That's the whole deal. So you drop a turret and it starts shooting, and your friend walks in front of it. They're gonna die, and you're gonna have to resummon them basically with this really cool...
If you use a sniper rifle, just for example, this definitely never happened. If you use a sniper rifle, you will shoot your friend in the back and one-shot them.
they have a lot of really cool and polished systems in the game. I like when you go to use one of your special abilities, you have to type in like a little, not quick time, but it'll be like left, up, down, triangle.
Sure.
And you have to do that, and everyone's got a different one of those, so you can't just spam things super easily. You need to pay attention at all times. It has like a active reloading system where if you shoot 10 bullets and then you reload your gun and you had 10 bullets in that clip, you just throw out 10 bullets. Like you don't get to keep that like Call of Duty or something where you reload.
It's a very punishing game. That's the difficulty in is that it punishes.
But that being said, it's fun. It's a really good. It fits into that multiplayer section of the Vita that I was talking about.
It's a good sort of challenge. It's not like get one hit killed by everything.
There's a leveling system that's very rewarding. You can get like new capes and new outfits. The characters look cool. And there's a lot of expansions and just content for the game. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. It's one of those things where it's not really my style game, but I really liked it. And it plays really well on the Vita. So there we go.
Couch co-op for the win.
Couch co-op or over your Wi-Fi with your party chat, because you can do that.
Number 9, Sound Shapes is a platforming music game, which both of those are not really my genre anymore, but somehow they converged, stars aligned, and I liked it. I guess I should have made the note, I own or have played all of these, so I try to do that with my list. I don't really like to go out there and be like, hey, here's something I've never played, but other people liked it.
Just in case.
So that's why some games may not show up and such. But Sound Shapes, platforming music game, I thought it was a really unique approach to the game. It looks like a Nintendo game to me, like if you just look at it aesthetically, but it's like really like sublime. Like you get really lost in the music. It's like electronic music, and it starts off really quiet in all the levels. But it's like I said, it's a platform game, so you're like this little thing. You're a little circle.
A blob,
and as you move through the level, it's obviously just like every other platform. Make it to the end of the run, but it's got collectibles in it, so little things scattered throughout the level. And if you hit them, the music kind of winds up, and like you can hear like beats and stuff.
Yeah, it basically adds a note or a beat or a new instrument or whatever it is.
It's got artists like Beck and Deadmau5 and people like that. So it's like actual music artists and not just someone making maybe their first OST or something like that. So it's got pretty good licensed type of music in it. So you can really like just kind of make it your own game. You can have, sort of a dull, quiet, just platformer, and, the controls and stuff like that work for it well. But, you feel that's another one, just like the game I just mentioned. Like you can feel like if you go the extra mile to get all the little dots around the map.
You get the complete
song. You have like a concert going for the most part, and it's really cool.
Yeah, you have to play that game with headphones.
Sure.
Like, it's super recommended with headphones. But also, I think the Vita, it's on multiple things, but I think the Vita is the best place to play that game because, I don't know, just riding in the car playing that game with my headphones on, zoning out, sort of listening to me. I guess times where you would listen to music, like on an airplane or something like that, that's where that game shines.
And this, I think, opposed to like the 3DS with the multiple screens, because the Vita is the way it is with one screen and the buttons right there, like you're not having to look up while you're pushing buttons down here. So like it's just a nice experience, and I like where the headphone jack is and everything on the Vita, so it matched up well with this. And another thing, like I said, that happened in Legend of Heroes is that this game is super dynamic. So I just like that common theme, I guess, so far with my list. But
also, it's all cross-save, which is nice. Yeah. So if you have it on PS4 or PS3, you can transfer that save.
Yeah,
which is another thing.
I think the most part why it made at least number 9 so far is that both genres aren't really my sort of thing, but it's just one of those, like, you appreciate stuff more when a sandbox game hits and you're like, oh, I like this.
I like it, yeah.
So
my number 9, Metrico. Kind of similar to Sound Shapes, honestly. It is a puzzle-ish. I mean, it's a puzzle platformer, but it's based off of grids and graphs and charts instead of music. And the whole idea of it is you don't really know what anything does, and you just experiment until you kind of figure it out. So you walk into the room, because it's you're playing like almost a stick figure. And you walk into the room, and you're like, okay, I need to get up here. You hit X and part of the floor rises, and then it starts falling down. And you're like, okay. You hit it twice, it raises higher. And you're like, okay. So I jump on it and keep hitting it, and then I'm up there, and I go to the next thing. And then it gets to the point where R's doing something, and you need to figure that out. And then L's doing something, and triangle does something. And you need to put everything together, including like the camera on the Vita and the tilt controls. It uses every part of the Vita. To solve all of these puzzles that they have that are basically just get from this end of the room to this end of the room, but there's all these obstacles in the way that you need to tilt or hold the camera up to something red to change the color of stuff in the thing. Really creative, really smart.
Innovation.
Yeah, and it's not too long. It took me just a couple hours to get through, and it was something I knew I wanted it when it came out. It was actually free on Plus when it came out. I knew I wanted it, but I didn't know that I was going to like it so much. Like, I kind of just sat there and was like, oh, I'll check it out. I like to try the PlayStation Plus games because they're free.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'll check it out, and then I just beat it all in one sitting. I was like, holy crap, that was really good. And you can get Metrico Plus for the PlayStation 4 now, which adds, like, PlayStation 4 functionality, but the Vita version is the best version of the game. It's what it was made for.
Yeah.
And it's just a design and an idea and everything that I've never seen before, which was really cool. So, and it's another game. It's like almost a hidden gem to me. Like, nobody talks about the game, and I don't fully understand why. Like, I don't know what people's experience were with it. If people don't like it, or there's just no one talks about it. So,
because it's on the Vita, and no one talks about that. So.
That's true. So, Metrico.
That doesn't help it. Next one on my list, not really too much to talk about this one because it's pretty straightforward. Wipeout 2048. I always call the Wipeout games Sony's F-Zero. It's
because they are
literally what it is. It's one of the few racing games that I'll play on handheld.
Is it 28?
2048.
48.
One of the few racing franchises or just games in general that I'll play on a handheld because that's a weird mishmash of themes, I guess. Like, you want a big screen or you want to be like locked into something where handheld is just kind of weird for driving controls, just in general. But it works for this one. I think it's like a launch title, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
Vita's launch was insane. Yeah, I think it had that. I do think that was a launch title. It had Uncharted and Luminous, and it was a good launch.
But it's fun, fast, exciting, and it looks pretty for what it does. It runs just fine, and yeah, it's just. I think other than Mario Kart, this is really the only kind of racing franchise that I'll play on handheld. So,
I've got for number 8, Killzone Mercenary. Killzone Mercenary was a surprise to me because that is them actually living up to their promise of this is console gaming on the go, right? They said that, and then they were like, well, with first-person shooters specifically, they were like Resistance, and it was a piece of trash. And they're like, here's a Call of Duty, and it was a piece of trash, and it was done by the same team as the Resistance team. So when they were like Killzone, I was like, it's the best-looking Vita game, I think. And I was like, how in the world does this run on the Vita? Next off, and they're like, yeah, this is Killzone 3's engine, and we ported it to Vita.
Yeah,
like, how do you even do that?
They severely neutered the system, but it still looks
it still looks great. And you play it on the TV.
Still kind of like makes you scratch your head and go like, how does this work?
You play it on the TV with the Vita TV, and it looks like a PlayStation 3 game, which is awesome. But it's the best, and it's by far the best first-person shooter on the thing. Yeah. I think it's probably the best like console experience game on it. It has rewards the Vita aspect of it, which I really like. So the multiplayer and the single player tie into each other. If you do stuff in single player, it rewards your multiplayer progress. If you do stuff in multiplayer, it rewards your single player. So if you're at home or on the train or whatever you're doing, you're building your character.
The train, huh?
Sure, whatever you're doing, you're building your character to that you got to jump between. God, that's a good level. You're building your character for your next venture in the game. It had touchscreen controls.
Well, it's one of those like no time wasted sort of
things.
Right, yeah. Like you don't feel like you're missing out because, I want to check out the story, but I'm going to be far behind in multiplayer.
Exactly. It had the touchscreen controls, which weren't very intrusive. I didn't like the melee controls, but the multiplayer hacking minigame that you have to do when you're doing one of the multiplayer modes was awesome, and I actually really, really enjoyed it. The visuals, the card system where you ranked up and you were basically like a 2 of spades and then a 3 of spades and then a 4, and you leveled up and you basically were a card, and when you killed someone they dropped that card and you could pick it up and like complete a royal flush or a full house or the deck or whatever, and you get bonuses for doing that. I think that's a really cool way to do a leveling system. So you are rewarded for killing people of a higher rank than you because you get a card that other people probably don't have. Just really, really good. I think it's the second best Killzone game behind Killzone 2.
Yeah.
It's a very... I like it more than Shadowfall, if that's what you're...
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy comparison.
Yeah, I like 2 and then this and then Shadowfall. I like this and 2 like way above the other ones though. Just incredible that it runs, and it's a really good first-person shooter on the go, which is crazy. Probably the only good first-person shooter on the go.
I think this is probably the one game, regardless of what genre you're really into, unless you just absolutely hate shooters and violence and stuff like that. This is probably the one game that has to be on a top 10 for sure, out of all the things we'll mention, because I know there's people who don't like platformers, don't like this sort of game, that sort of game. And, this system does hit a lot of sweet spots.
Yeah, it's got a lot of everything. You want some dance games? You got dance games.
Yeah.
You want a first-person shooter? You got a first-person shooter.
But this is the one just because of what it's able to accomplish. And like you said, it's one of those games that you sit there and ask yourself, how does it run?
Yeah.
Like, I always feel like those types of games that break the console for the most part, but it doesn't break. Those always kind of have to be on the list just for like technical achievement, which is, I still don't know how they fit it on there.
Yeah,
like I said, they hampered the Killzone 3 system that they imported it from.
And it's still great.
And it still works. So I agree with that. And maybe it'll show up on mine.
Ooh.
But not now.
Foreshadowing.
Because number 7, Super Stardust Delta. Super Stardust Delta is a fast action pace shoot 'em up, and I always compare it to Geometry Wars because it looks just like it, except instead of, you are revolving around like a sphere versus just a square screen where you're just moving left and right. It's twin stick control, so perfect for the Vita. Presentation, really great. Same thing with Geometry Wars. Lots of vivid, bright colors, explosions. Everything's popping for the most part. And my favorite thing about it is that it's like super addicting. It feels like an arcade game.
Oh, yeah. It straight up is an arcade game.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just one of those experiences. Unlike the other games that I've mentioned where, well, maybe Wipeout, not so much. Other games are, a couple hours, stuff like that. You can feel like if you're in a car ride with someone, you can just pop this game on for 20, 30 minutes. Go back to what you're doing.
Yeah, it's the Resogun guys, and they know how to do the chase the high score style games for sure. And it is arguably their best one.
Yeah, and had leaderboards and stuff like that, so you literally feel like you beat the level and you see the leaderboards drop down and where your score's at, and
you're like, oh, I'm getting crushed by all my friends. Real cool. Number 7?
Yeah.
Tearaway. Tearaway is the second game, well, I guess third game, technically, by Media Molecule. They did Little Big Planet 2, and then Tearaway, and then they kind of disappeared when they announced Dreams. They're like, we're out. Where'd you guys go? Tearaway was a game that I was super excited for, but I didn't know, because it was a side project, basically. They were like, oh, we're working on this game that's never going to come out. We need some people to make this Vita game. And they, similar to Metrico, used every piece of the Vita, even more so than Metrico. They used the camera, the back camera, the front camera, the touchscreen, the back touch, like everything that you could possibly use, and they combined it into a platformer, which is one of my favorite. Now, it's not Mario 64 style, like hub world, go to different levels. It's a journey. It's very much you're Iota, who's a great little character, and you're trying to bring a letter. He has a message because he's a delivery boy, I guess. He is a message, technically. And you're trying to bring that message to you. And you is literally you. So the front camera is always on, looking at your face while you're playing. And if you ever look up into the sky, you see your face there. You're the sun. And the whole point of the game is to deliver this message. You're bringing the message to you, the sun, and you're like a god to these people. They talk about you as if you were a god.
Someone had an ego while they were developing this game.
And it's so cool because you can literally influence the game. So when there's characters running around, you can stick your fingers on the back touch and fingers will break through the screen, and you can kill the enemies or knock them off the cliff or fling them or whatever you need to do. And the characters are like, thank you, the god. It's such a clever idea that, like I said, uses all the meat and bones
functionality of the system,
for the system, and it's just really special. They also, in a lot of these cases, ported it to PS4. It's weird. They ported so many games to PS4, and there's only one of them that I agree with. Like, I don't know why they didn't port Killzone. I don't know why they didn't port, like Uncharted
I mean, it's like
and stuff.
importing a Wii game to like an Xbox, and it's just like, what's the point? Like, it was
some
built
of them are
for a
some
very
of them are
specific
right.
purpose.
Like they port Tearaway and they don't port Uncharted. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't understand you guys. But anyway, the Vita version's better than the PS4 version.
Yeah,
because
I mean, like you said, fingers breaking through the ground and stuff like that. Like you can't do that really with a
Tearaway, a fantastic little platform adventure game.
Sticking on a sub-theme of genres I don't normally play or got tired of, Guacamelee. It is a very, very strict nod to the Metroidvania type games. I mean, it plays just like it. The style is very much similar to those games. The art design and characters, though, is what made it hit this list, I guess, for me. It's very Mexican themed, which is obviously not a huge genre. It's very much in the minority. I can't actually think.
Mexican themed games?
Yeah, I can't really.
I can think
Sombra de Amigo, I guess, is the only
one. I can think of some, but it's almost a spoiler.
Oh, is it? But yeah, the characters are really fun. It's a very... This game does not take itself seriously one bit. So very much not like the Metroidvania games. But this one's fun. It's, like I said, it's Mexican themed, so the soundtrack is very good, and it's kind of in a league of its own. Like I said, like sort of like the theme of the game, Mexican themed. You don't really have that type of music for video game music.
Right.
You get your beat boops and your orchestral stuff and whatever else, but you don't really.
And you're
have,
back in your dead mouse. But you don't.
You don't really have many games with maracas and banjos and whatever else is going on in the background. So it's really cool. I think I really like the soundtrack too, not just for the fact that it's kind of unique, but it's actually pretty rocking for a little game like this. I like that not only do you get the look and feel of the luchador main character and kind of Mexican themed, like sort of historic things, but sort of not, like just cultural sort of aspects to the game.
Like Day of the Dead is a huge
but his moves, I mean, there's a lot of like bouncing off the walls and stuff, so it sort of feels like you're on a turnbuckle sort of thing, sort of like wrestling, but a lot of his moves are like grappling moves and stuff
he's
like
a
that.
luchador.
Yeah, so
Straight
it's not just aesthetics, it's like actual core gameplay. So I think like as far as like flavor and stuff like that, like this is in its own separate little category because you don't really have games like this. It's
also just a very good Metroidvania.
Yeah.
Like
it hit a very untapped market. So that's the big one. It's actually surprising it's not in my top 5, but we'll get there.
Will we? Drinkbox Studios did that game. Mm-hmm. They also did my number 6, Severed. Very similar art style. It's got that super colorful pop Mexican looking vibe to it.
Looks beautiful.
Yeah, except this one is a touchscreen based dungeon crawler. And once again, my theme with the Vita, it uses the touchscreen well. Mm-hmm. This is the only game I will say in my life that I'm like, if this game didn't have touch controls, it would be the stupidest game I've ever seen. So just for people, the way that it works is it's a dungeon crawler. The dungeons, I liken them to Zelda, but that's not really a good comparison. They're more similar to Persona Q, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's a first-person dungeon crawler. You're going around, you're fighting enemies, but when you fight the enemies, their hit points are slashable with your finger. So you literally cut to do damage to them, but you sever their limbs. So maybe you want to level up a certain thing and you need this thing's left arm to do it. You need to swipe and sever off that left arm and collect it, but you're timed in the amount of time that you have to do it and things like that. And it ends up being almost like a rhythm game when you're fighting multiple enemies because only one's on the screen at a time, and you swipe to, or I think you hit the trigger, to turn to look at another enemy. So it'll show you just on the bottom of your screen a glow when they're getting ready to attack, and if you counterattack in the opposite way that they attack, you kind of negate the attack. So if they
like
swipe,
parry it or something?
Yeah, so if they swipe like this and you swipe back, they'll bounce off each other, basically. Cool. So you get into this almost rhythm-style game where you're like swipe, 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 turn, block, turn, turn, block, swipe, swipe, and you start to get into the rhythm of the game, and it's really fun. The game's an RPG, but it's beatable in like 8 hours, similar to like a Child of Light or the South Park Stick of Truth. Like it gives you all the feeling of an RPG in a short amount of time. You can go for the platinum if you want more, which is still very obtainable in a short amount of time. interesting enough puzzles with levers and hidden walls. You got that Metroidvania style. It's the same company, where you beat a boss and then you get the ability to see through walls or something like that. And then that lets you go back to the first dungeon and see all these things that you missed. And then you can use that ability to get through different areas.
Yeah, those types
stuff.
of games are real big on go back, do this, go back, do that.
Right, yeah.
So
I
at least it rewards you for that.
I would never think
this
that
door is unlocked now. Or
I would
something.
never think that I'd give a dungeon crawling first person touch only combat game, a number 6 slot on a top 10 list, but Severed is really, really good, really special, and they gambled on the Vita. Obviously, it's on your phone now, I believe, and it's 100% on the Wii U, and I feel like it'll come to the Switch if it's not already announced. But they gambled with the Vita for this thing. They were like, we're making a Vita exclusive game. Because Guacamelee did so well on the Vita. That was their platform that it did really well on. And they're like, so we're making you guys a Vita exclusive game. And it super paid off. Really, really good.
Number 5, I wanted to throw a couch co-op game on here as well. Dragon's Crown. Something I initially played here with you guys. I think it was just you and me and Kellen at first. I think we've had 4 players maybe once.
We did twice. But playing that game with Todd, no good. He just kills you.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Sorry. I'm mixing up Helldivers and Dragon's Crown.
Yeah.
No, that one is the 3-player only one, yeah.
3-player only? Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, old school dungeon crawler.
We did play those two right next to each other, though, so it got confusing. Yeah.
Old school dungeon crawler, which is right up my alley. I think it looks great. It's definitely not a photorealistic game. It's like super high
stylized.
fantasy. Yeah. Very dark borders around their characters, stuff like that. Interesting body shapes on some of these people. A little too much fantasy there, I guess. But if it's like the old style of like Gauntlet, Diablo sorts of games, you're taking this character, you're running through levels over and over and over and over again. There's not really that many levels, but that's not the point. It's a grindy RPG. I think there's a very deep skill and loot system, and which is obviously kind of the backbone of these genres. And my very favorite thing is that all the classes, I think there's 6.
That sounds right.
They are not carbon copies of each other.
Not at all. Yeah.
It's not, hey, here's this class, you're the big boob girl or the little dwarf man or the muscle dude. Like, they are very different. So it feels, this is something I said whenever I talk about Mass Effect 1, or Mass Effect Trilogy, it feels like there's a very specific reason to go back and play every single class and not just pick one. Your experience really isn't going to change much if you play the other ones. Don't worry about it. Stick with what you like. Like this one, there's a reason to go play the wizard and go play the barbarian or whatever the classes are called. But yeah, this is my favorite part about it is that it has the nostalgia of the old games, but it's newer themed and replayability is really big on it, and it works. I don't think we hit any game breaking things or anything like that. It worked well, and it looks great, and you can play it on PS3, Vita. So I think a
great little side-scrolling RPG game for sure. Next up, I have Freedom Wars. Now, Freedom Wars is a game that I absolutely love, and it would be probably much higher on my list if I played it with more people that I knew and less randos online. But Freedom Wars is their Monster Hunter, and I think they actually knocked it out of the park, and this is the game more than any I want on PlayStation 4. I was like, please, just bring Freedom Wars to PlayStation 4 so I can play it again with a community.
Yeah.
But it is their Monster Hunter, but instead of doing trying to clone it, it takes place in the future, and it has this really interesting story where basically the world is overpopulated and you being born is a crime, and you start the game with this 1,000,000-year sentence, and you have to work for the government to earn your freedoms. So the way you work for the government is you take down these monsters that have taken over.
Bounties. Yep.
And they're all robotic, similar to Severed. To build new weapons and things, you have to sever off specific body parts, and you do that with a thorn, which is almost like a hook shot from Zelda, I guess is the best way to put it, but it also works as a lasso. So you can like wrap up the enemies by their legs and then pull them down. You can sever off one leg and then wrap up the other one and pull them down with this thorn, or you can use it as a grappling hook type thing to shoot on top of the big monsters and try to start severing off their armor or things like that. But you're using futuristic things. You have guns and like laser guns, and you can use swords, and you have this thorn thing where it can be a healing one that can do healing abilities, or a damage over time one. There's a couple different thorns that you can use. And you're doing these jobs for the government to lower your sentence and earn freedoms. So then you can talk to this character in the game to start buying freedoms. But the thing that's really cool is I always play as a girl character when you can customize your own character. So I made my character and I was a girl, and my friend that I was playing with made his character and he was a boy, and we wanted to start doing missions together. So like I walked up to him and talked to him, and they added more time to my sentence because I didn't earn the freedom to talk to the opposite sex yet. And you start the game and you immediately run, and you add time to your sentence because you didn't buy the freedom to be able to run. So you're like slowly earning these freedoms, and I never did it because it takes a really long time. But eventually you can be completely free from the system. That's like the idea. But it's just a really fun Monster Hunter style game. You pick the mission, you do it with a group of 4. You move on to another mission, you build better weapons, you take down bigger monsters, etc., etc. And then it also has a multiplayer mode that's 4v4 that's really fun. They have a capture the flag, which is just capture the civilians, basically. And when you have a civilian, you carry them, so you can't fight when you have it. So your team needs to run with you and protect you while you're bringing it back to your ship from the opposing faction, that you're fighting each other from. Just really good, awesome Monster Hunter style gameplay on the Vita. And I really want Freedom Wars 2, and I don't care. Put it on PS4, whatever. Like, that game was another gem in their collection that I hope they go back
Maybe
to.
they'll see the one that comes out for Switch and go, didn't we have something like this? And
maybe, because it was Sony Japan. And they did Gravity Rush 2 on the PlayStation 4. So maybe we'll get the Freedom Wars 2. That'd be sweet.
Perhaps. My number 4, and maybe the first repeat on here, finally. We can add some more points to it. Killzone Mercenary.
Ooh.
On top of what we already talked about, I guess, just a couple notes. Easily the best shooter on a handheld, not just Vita, just anything. It's a cool continuation of one of my favorite shooter franchises, and it looks real sharp, plays very well.
Oh, yeah. It's still... And the other thing that actually goes to Killzone's favor is people complain about Killzone for its weight. Everything feels heavy. Blah, blah, blah. And they fixed that in Shadowfall, and that's part of the reason I don't like Shadowfall as much. The weight actually helps the Vita because of like the dead space and stuff in the sticks when you're playing a game like that. So when you have that weight, it just feels right on the Vita. I don't know how else to describe it.
It's always been a stupid complaint, but I know what you're talking about.
Next up, Guacamelee.
Hey.
How about that? That was... Hold on, let me make sure this is right. That was a 7-pointer.
It was number 6 for me, so that should have been...
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Guacamelee gets 7 more points. Just want to make sure I don't mess this up.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Yeah, Guacamelee, everything that you said, the style, the music, just the idea. I don't like Metroidvanias very much. I've played the big ones, like Symphony of the Night, and I thought they were fine. Like, I'm not a big fan.
I know it's the point of the genres, but they're very redundant.
Yeah. I loved Guacamelee. Yeah. I thought it was fantastic. I think it was just the right... It was hard, very hard. It was challenging, but I was able to beat it and then go, wow, there's all these things I didn't do that are even more... There's a tower in the game that's, like, impossible to do.
Yeah.
I love the day and, like, World of the Dead, Living and World of the Dead. That
you
can
swap between dimensions.
You can switch between, but like certain platforms aren't in other dimensions, so you'll have to jump and change dimensions,
and enemies and stuff
and
like
then
that
jump
too.
and change dimensions. Yeah, and you
sometimes
can just see
like a white
outline.
silhouette. Yeah,
you see their silhouette, and then you switch, and they're on top of you, and you need to prepare that way. It was so good, such a good game in a genre that I don't really like, that I ended up loving that game, and it's the game that I was like, maybe I should pay attention to these. Oh, the Severed game might be pretty cool. So everything that you've said, and I do want to point out that there is a huge emphasis on humor in that game.
Oh yeah.
Like the chicken is hilarious, and my favorite part of the game is there's the Metroid statues are in the game, and the first one you go like and like break it and sit in the spot where in Metroid you get the thing, and a guy comes out and he's like, you broke my statue. Are you gonna pay me for that?
Yeah, it is a very self-aware game, which helps.
Yeah, it helps a lot. So It gives you some laughs while you're running around and doing the ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's
luchador
a
things.
fun challenging, not like you're dreading every single minute of this, but you're finishing just to say you did sort of thing.
No, I really liked that game. So.
Number 3, and I think maybe our first table appearance, Steins Gate.
Ooh.
This is literally about the only way to pull me into a visual novel type game, which is what this is. I don't normally I want interactivity. If I'm gonna read, I'll just grab a book or click through it and look at fan fiction or whatever you want to talk about. Like cool, or not read it. Skip through the dialogue. But I think it has a cool system of showing you like how to affect the outcome of the game through its little phone trigger system and text message system. I think are the 2 ways how you can change the story. And it's a very nice usage of one of my favorite stories of any sort of medium, book, movie, TV, anime. Obviously this one's anime, but it's one of my favorite stories because big into time travel stuff, big into sci-fi, big into animation, and that is about as good as it gets if you're merging all 3 of those things. Really cool story.
I also really like that if you've seen the anime, it's the same story.
Yeah.
If you've seen the anime, but you learn so much more from this. Like, they'll bring up things in passing, like, oh, once I did this, or we worked on this and never completed it and stuff. And when you play this, you'll learn every single thing. You can learn about every little passing mention that they make about things, which was really cool.
If you're into lore, details, codex sort of stuff, these are your type of games. If you want that kind of filler information that TV shows with a very specific runtime can't fit in. So, I think it's basically one of the best supplemental games, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
I would obviously say go watch the anime, but play this behind it because you fill in a lot of gaps.
For sure.
But yeah, awesome game. And like I said, that's about the only kind of direction that can pull me into visual novels. They're just kind of not my thing. But if you throw a favorite franchise in there and say, hey, we're going to tell you a bunch of stuff that the show didn't get a chance to get around to, okay.
I'm listening. My number 3, Gravity Rush. Gravity Rush is my favorite game on the Vita. It is fantastic. Very similar if you know like the Infamous franchise. It's similar like that. It's a superhero origin story. You're learning your powers. You're leveling up. You collect crystals that you can use to make your melee better and your flying powers and everything. But the reason it was so cool is 1, the art style and the music is fantastic. Very like French influenced. And 2, the power is gravity, which is not something I've ever seen explored much anywhere, honestly. And you're basically...
Not unless it's like a super sci-fi shooter. I've seen those in like the...
Sure.
But yeah, with this kind of genre, sure.
Right, a superhero with like gravity powers is kind of interesting. So she basically falls everywhere and you control the direction of the gravity where she falls. So if you want to go to a building, you literally change the gravity so it's aimed at the building and then you fall to the building and you're standing on it. And you can walk around, fight enemies in the building, et cetera, et cetera. The story's interesting. It's all about learning how you got your powers, things like that. You find someone else very early in the story that has a similar power, so you go hunt her down. And the villain's really cool, and they do a cool story thing with the villain that I like a lot. And it's actually got a emotional, really well told scientific story. Like you'll learn a lot from this game, and it was cool because there was a lot of theories about the game going around when it happened, and Gravity Rush 2 clears a lot of that up. But there was a theory about the game going around. I'm like, oh, maybe that's true, and it was just a neat way to do it. My issues with the game are, there's like camera things that go on because you're flying all around. But my biggest issue is that the PlayStation 4 version is actually better in this case. This is one of the cases where it's better. It's just sharper and controls better. So if you have a PlayStation 4, I would say get it there if you can find it, because they only did one run of it and it's very expensive now. But if you can't find, or if you don't want to pay that much money or whatever, it is totally serviceable on the Vita. It's the reason I bought a Vita. I went to the store to buy a 3DS and they had a demo of this and I left with the Vita, and that's straight up true what happened. I went to the store to get Mario Kart and a 3DS and I left with a Vita and Gravity Rush. It's the thing that changed my mind on the console. So if you like superheroes, comic books, all the cutscenes are all comic books, which is neat. Superheroes, comic books, anything like that, totally play this.
I like the Japanese take on the French.
It's a mixture of
the
French
only other
and
game
Japanese.
I've seen do that is Pokemon X and Y. that was very French themed, and like the cities that they went around to and the buildings and way people talked and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like to see Japan's take not on some super futuristic Final Fantasy world where all these things have happened and now mankind.
You don't know what's happening.
Like I feel like realistic and grounded, but with a fantasy twist to it, sort of like the sort of fictional twist.
It's also got your, I say sandbox world, but it's a big world to once again be on the Vita. It's incredible that they were able to, because you can fall from one end of the world to the other all seamlessly.
That's what I liked most about your description. It's a game where you fall.
I mean, it says that save a world that's falling apart by manipulating gravity.
Number 2 on my list, Velocity 2X.
Interesting. Did not
this
expect
is
that.
Not a genre that I'm not going to say I don't like it, because I compare this game to Sonic. If I'm being half the game feels like Sonic. When you're on foot, it feels like Sonic.
I love the on foot stuff.
You're on foot and swapping between ships for those who are kind of lost right now. Velocity 2X, it's a very fast, futuristic shoot 'em up. Like I said, it plays like Sonic. It's got gorgeous graphics. It's hard to say what looks the best on the system, but if you're going with that sort of art style that pops, is very colorful, like vivid, I'd say this looks the best. Obviously, Killzone Mercenaries, as far as like a photorealistic, it's not even a competition. But regardless, it's one of the best, if not the best looking games on the system, I think. I think it's got a crazy mixture of like puzzles, arcade shooting, platforming. Like you are jumping back and forth a lot. It's not like Sonic where you're stuck on one sort of game mode. You do some Sonic bits, you jump into a puzzle where you're jumping around in ships and teleporting here and there, zip-zapping.
Yeah, so you're a ship that you shoot and blow things up, and that's cool, but you have a teleporter, which is the cool thing. So you hit square and aim wherever, and you jump to wherever you aimed. So the reason that matters is because you're in a ship, so it's always constantly scrolling.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to teleport between these spaces that aren't actually connected, and you have to kind of bloop, 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 bloop to get through.
Like, a wall's coming. Just
different areas, and it's really cool when you're in the 2D side-scrolling sections of the game where you're running really fast and doing kind of the Sonic thing, because you'll run and there'll be a wall there, and you just teleport past the wall and keep running.
So sort of like you were saying with, which one was it, Severed, where you feel like you're getting into a rhythm. This one feels like, I mean, it's not something you just kind of do little bit by little bit, move a couple feet, no, this one's like a rush.
You hold down that run button.
Yeah. So it's really cool. That was probably the only game on the system. I know Guacamelee can kind of feel fast-paced at sometimes. Wipeout, because it's a racing game. And this was the only fast-paced, like adrenaline kind of rush game, aside from maybe Mercenaries. But yeah, I like it, and probably to the shock of you, this isn't a Nick sort of game, but I just kind of got caught up, I guess, in like the flow of the game. I was just like, this is too fun to put down. So
yeah, I had 6 games that I wanted on the list, and I kept trying to fight over that 9 and 10 spot and trying to figure it out.
We do honorable mentions then,
this
right
was
before number 1.
Yeah, we can just throw out a couple, and then obviously there's one that we need to talk about, but we can throw out a couple. Number 2, Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc.
That's why I grabbed it.
Technically a PSP game in Japan, never came out here. Whatever. Danganronpa 2, just as good.
It fits.
Danganronpa 1 is half the visual novel style. You're very tropey Japanese, making fun of itself. Sort of. I mean, it's their Phoenix Wright, basically. And then the other half is the Phoenix Wright. You're doing trials. You're trying to figure out who the murderer is, and just the story for the game is you're all locked in a school of. This school only takes the best baseball player, the best swimmer, the best this, the best that, and it only takes them, and there's 15 of them, I believe. And you're all locked in this school, and the only way to get out is to kill somebody and then get away with it. So you'll kill, the game will basically be like spend time with people, learn about them, whatever, go to bed, somebody died, investigate the crime scene, go to trial, and then figure out who did it. And a lot of things come into play, like you're the ultimate this, which means you would have the ability to do that.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Things like that. So the story is just really well written. There's a lot of twists and turns, especially in the second one where they start getting crazy. The second one's almost like, it's not quite twice as long, but it's way longer and there's way more twists. Just a really good series that has 1, 2, and then there's a 1.5 type thing, and then an anime finishes it off. But really fantastic.
It lends itself to anime.
Oh, yeah.
Quite well.
Very fantastic. Monokuma is a great character. He's the teddy bear killing villain of the series. Smart writing.
Cute, but not nice.
I was about to say rated M. Very much rated M. They had to change a lot of things from their original designs, which you can find online, because it was too brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, these are kids that we're murdering, and they like made the blood pink and stuff just to that became kind of iconic for the series. But really good. And there's another one coming out in September that I'm very excited to play. But yeah, I was shocked because this is the game that kind of got me into the style game, because I didn't like them before that, and then I was like, ooh, now these are awesome. So
my honorable mentions / these games don't make the list because of our rules, but I feel like I want my 2 minutes or so to talk about this.
Sure.
This system has Persona 1 through Persona 4 Golden on it.
It does.
If you've ever watched this show, we like Persona a lot.
Nice
whole lot. I'll get to that. Maybe. We like those games a whole lot.
Oh, yeah.
Persona 1 got the ball rolling. Persona 2, which maybe someday we can compare, because I know you've dabbled in it. Yeah. Kellen's maybe 10 years he'll play it once 6 comes out. Deserves to be talked about. Persona 3, oh yeah, all on board. Persona 4, widely regarded as
the best,
top notch.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you see any top list besides ours, Persona 4 Golden will be at least
probably
third.
number 1.
At least
might
third,
be number 2.
most likely first. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't talk about them because of our list, but I wanted to put that out there.
So
it's my soul could rest.
They basically HD'd the game and added a whole bunch of stuff to it. It's fantastic. It's
that you can see if you don't screw up.
it's the best game on the console.
Yeah.
Definitely get that if you're getting it, et cetera, et cetera. But for our purposes, it could not be on this list.
And yeah, those were my honorable mentions. Was all 4 of those, I guess, for the most part. Well,
sure.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
2.5. All that stuff.
All the iterations.
Yeah. I just have some, like, I don't have Uncharted on my list, which a lot of people would be upset during, or Little Big Planet. Some of these more Sony name things. Actually, the last one I knocked off my list was Velocity 2X.
Really? Cool.
I was playing it again yesterday just to make sure. I was like going back and forth.
I got your back. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised. I was like, oh, okay.
Saving grace.
So, what's your number 1? What could
Drum
it be?
roll for all the people who can't see my shirt at the moment.
I can't believe you.
Persona 4, Dancing All Night. I didn't just put this on here to get a Persona game, I swear. I was very much blown away by this game in the fact that when it was announced, and it was a music rhythm game, so basically I'm sure a lot of people just saw, oh, okay, easy cash grab.
Yeah.
And
like all their spin-offs seemed like they would be.
And this was like, here you go, fans. You really like these characters. You really want to see a little bit more of them. Okay, here you go. I'm not much of a music rhythm game fan.
Yeah.
I mean, Hatsune Miku is pretty cool. I like that. I'll support it. Haven't bought any other game in that sort of genre. That's not really my thing. But I've played enough of the Guitar Heroes and Rock Bands and stuff like that to at least get the rhythm part of it. So I was just like, you know what? Screw it. Why not? Really liked 4. So I knew I could at least get into the characters and stuff like that. Had no idea, because I didn't look into it, obviously, that it was going to have such a crazy single player, like an actual story, like 20 hours or something like that.
Yeah, it's like 18 hours of visual novel story, and then 2 hours of some dancing.
And at least that part with all the cinematics and all the new characters they bring in, stories, it's a lot like 4. They don't go off on a weird path where you're like, oh, I didn't expect this. It's very much the same kind of story, just set a few months, I think, down the line from the end of Persona 4 Golden. So they're using about the same story, but like all the cinematics, all the scenes in between, the dialogue and the places you go and the things you're doing, like I was blown away. Like I had no clue
I was surprised
what I was getting myself into.
It was definitely way better than I thought it was going to be. I
honestly turned it on and saw a story. I was like, story? Huh? Okay. I thought it was just going to be like a hey, you, show up. You, the character, not you.
You want me to dance?
Not sun god, you. You, here you go. Rise, here you go. And it's just like they walk into a place and just start dancing. Like, that's all I thought it was. Oh, no. This is a fully, like, as far as that portion of the game, I think it's very, as polished as usual Persona games. I mean, they got the same voices back for the most part.
Except for Rise.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucked because she's the main character of it. But.
Did a good job, though, with the girl they got in her plays. It's easy to...
English chick from Steins Gate.
Ah.
It's do girl.
Best girl.
English.
It was easy to not get, sidetracked by that because a lot of it's a very noisy game with the music and just like the levels and stuff like that. So it wasn't distracting where you're just like, who is this new sounding person I can't get behind? But introduced sweet new characters. And then when you got to the actual dancing portions of the game, except for, I think there's a feature of the game where you're flicking one of the joysticks to kind of match the symbol on the screen. There's like a big ring because all of it's like coming at you like a track.
Yeah, optional.
I think they even patched it to where you can hit triggers or something like that instead of flick the joystick.
There's something that you can do. You can hit the touchscreen, I believe,
something like that,
or the sticks or something.
There's ways to avoid basically my biggest complaint about the gameplay, but other than that, the songs are amazing. Like, the soundtrack is ridiculously good. They took songs that were already good from Persona 4, made them sometimes better, but at least same level. And then there's some games that were really quiet, and they just tripled the beats per minute and just added like a dance soundtrack behind it and just made it awesome. So soundtrack blew me away. The fact that there was a story, just that it existed, and the fact that it was so good, like literally felt as polished as the arena fighting games, as the mainstay games, and you got 15, 20 hours of actual content in a rhythm dancer spin-off game. So that's what blew me away about it the most. I think it definitely, for anyone, should belong on the top 10. It did a lot. The biggest hindrance, I guess, is that you have to kind of know these characters, so you have to go play the other top 10 Persona game on the list to kind of understand, like, who are these people, because it's very much a spin-off. Like, you can't just be like, oh, I know this guy, because it's not like
you'll be
this
confused.
character who you were introduced to before. Like, it doesn't give you a background, really. It's you jump right in and go. But yeah, still play it to this day, still listen to the soundtrack to this day.
Oh yeah, I listened to it yesterday.
Still love the characters very much and hope they turn up again in a sequel.
That'd be sweet.
Either to this game or fighting game or any spin-off,
dancing all year around
they want to do. Have these people show up again.
I agree. My number one is the Nonary games, or more specifically, Virtue's Last Reward.
Yeah.
That was a Vita game. 999 was on the DS, and they remastered it, did voiceover work, all that stuff, and then they packaged it together with the Nonary games. So if you're gonna get one, get the Nonary games because it comes with both of them. But whatever. This is very similar to Danganronpa. It is a murder mystery. I think it's better told, and that is almost the exact. It doesn't rely on anime tropes to make the story funny and things like. It has jokes, but it's not really that funny of a game. It's a more.
And you do hate jokes, so.
It is a more serious story that I thought was really interesting. Basically, if instead of doing trials as the gameplay aspect of it, this is visual novel and escape rooms. Basically, you are locked in a room. You need to figure out how to get out. Look under everything, find all these items, and then figure out how they combine together. Figure out, behind this painting.
Feels like it had more systems in it than Danganronpa did, so it's more complex.
Probably, yeah. And the story and stuff is for sure. I don't want to spoil too much of it, which is very difficult to do when I start talking about this game. But it more grounded and such than Danganronpa, I think, at least. The characters are great, just like the Danganronpa. The escape rooms are fantastic, all very smart, very well done. And then basically their whole idea is they always have bracelets in every game. It's a trilogy. All three are on Vita. you have a bracelet, and the bracelet dictates how you can go into a room. So it's different in each game, but in Virtue's Last Reward specifically, it's color-based. So the bracelets are colored, and you can only go into a room of people that if you mix those colors together, you would get the color of that door. And if you want to go into a room that's like a primary color, all 3 people with that primary color have to go into that room together. So you can split up basically primaries. Then you solve the room together, and then when you get out of the room, you have to vote against the people you just solved the room with, and you vote to either betray them or to ally with them.
And they're voting too.
Yes, they are voting too. And basically, you start, I believe, with 3 points on. It might be 4 points on your watch. And if they agree, like you both ally, you both get 2 points. And if you get 9 points, you can leave the room. So it's like, oh, that's cool. You're all allying. So then if you betray and the other person betrays, you both get 0 points. So if you didn't have a good time and you both betray each other, nothing happens. But if one person allies and one person betrays, the betrayer gets 3 points instead of 2, and the other person loses a point.
Yeah.
Or loses 2 points, actually. Yeah, you start with 3 and you lose 2 points. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you hit 0, you have like an injection thing in your wristband, and it kills you. So you become a murderer. So they put you out. This is all in the opening of the game. They put you out into this thing. You're solving the stuff. And then very early on, they're like, by the way, one of the people in here with you set this up. Have fun voting. Yeah. And that's where the game becomes interesting, because you want to ally because you want everybody to get to 9 to leave, because the 9 thing only opens once. You get 1 shot to leave, basically. So everybody can be at 9 and leave together, or one person can leave behind everybody's back because they have 9. So it's a game of trust and betrayal and not knowing who's telling the truth, who's lying, all that stuff. Really good story.
Much like all of our Saturday get-togethers.
Really good story. I loved the timeline system, which allows you to jump back to choices that you made and pick a different choice and see how the story branches out from there. And then it becomes this game of using knowledge from different timelines and different things to solve all these problems. It's all tied into the story. It's really, really well done.
Well, replayability is probably your biggest thing on it too.
Sure, I would consider it all one replay because you can jump to any point. But and that's what they added to 999 in the original one. Originally, you did have to replay it every time, which kind of sucks. You don't have to do that anymore with this remaster in non-Ori games. But yeah, the story is just really good. The writing, the voice acting, everything, really well done. I was super surprised because I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. And I played 2, 1, 3. No, I played 2, 1, 3. That's how the order that I played it in. And I was okay with that. But yeah, if you do 1, 2, 3, you're going to have a real good time with this series. Real fantastic. Even if you don't think that you'd like the genre, check it out.
I mean, that was half of our descriptions for this list. I didn't think I'd like Metroidvania. I didn't think I'd like racing on a handheld. I didn't think I'd like this. So yeah, that's kind of maybe our theme for the system is if you don't like it, you might. So...
All right, so we have some tiebreakers here. I'm not sure how we're going to break them.
I started to think about it, and I was like, wait, the fact that we have all different games most likely is going to suck.
Almost, yeah. So that's what I was thinking. I think if we both have the game on the list, it should jump to the top of the tiebreaker because we both had it on the list.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so here's our top 10. Basically no particular order except for the top 2, we'll say. But number 10, Dragon's Crown.
Oh, number 3 is a particular order.
I'm going to make it number 4 now. Number 9, Freedom Wars. Number 8, Steins Gate. Number 7, Gravity Rush. Number 6, Danganronpa. Number 5, Velocity 2X. Number 4, Persona Dancing All Night. Number 3, the non-Ori games. Number 2, Killzone Mercenary. And number 1, Guacamelee. And I could be totally behind.
You hit a lot of genres if you go off this list.
Oh, yeah.
You hit everything.
For sure. You got your first-person shooters, your visual novels, your adventure games, RPG, Monster Hunter clones, a Phoenix Wright game. You got the shoot 'em up with Velocity. It's real good.
Best soundtrack you'll ever hear.
And I'm not opposed to Guacamelee being number 1. Honestly, that's a really good game. Like that is a perfectly serviceable.
I don't think there's that many people that would fight us on it. So
that's true.
I would gladly hand this list
to somebody and be like, get these 10 games.
Get these 10 games and Persona 2, Persona 3 FPS,
Persona 4 Golden.
Persona Golden.
All right. Well, let us know what your top 10 Vita games are down below in the comments. Is that them? That's not even 10. Oh, you're pointing down.
You
to
don't
the
need
comments.
7 if you got those 3.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Thank you for being here, Nick.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I don't have anybody else to thank except for you guys for watching. We'll speak with you next time.